I felt like this conditioning of like being a mom was everything. It's been this morphing into realizing like I have a passion, I have a purpose, I have like a soul's longing, I have these desires, these ways of being. Like there's how I want to show up. Like I don't like being ruled by somebody else's schedule. What is it that I want to create? And what is it that I want to live? And how do I want to be? And how do I want to show up in the world? Hey, Jess, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and to see where this conversation leads us this afternoon.
I know. We have no idea where it's going to go. In all reality, we'll see. But I know that you and I have connected on Instagram and we've been following along with each other and things like that. But I would love to know a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you become an entrepreneur? How did you get into the space of doing what you're doing? Like, what has that journey really been like for you?
Yeah, so I am a former high school principal turned leadership and energetic alignment coach. So my journey for the first couple of decades in my career were very linear, right? Like I didn't really overthink it. I was just kind of climbing this ladder. I began education as a teacher. So I was a Spanish and psychology teacher, became a curriculum coach to principal. And I never really thought about my next step. It just kind of happened. So there was no like master plan to fall into leadership. And I think because of that, that is when my journey became nonlinear. I really became burnt out. I became just that person, that leader that was like peeling themselves off the ground to even go to work. And what was at one point bringing me so much joy had left me so emotionally depleted. I was operating from an energetic void. And I ended up signing up to go to a retreat. It was a holistic wellness retreat. And a practitioner there asked me, do you know anyone like you doing the work that you're doing? And I thought about it because I have been surrounded by an amazing community of educational leaders, but my answer was still no. I didn't know anyone else who was carrying the emotional weight of the position as I was carrying it. And because of that, you know, as I kind of like dissected that consideration I've never had before, she said, you know, just because you're good at something doesn't mean it's meant for you. And that was a turning point for me because I realized that even though I was so passionate about my work and I had thought that was my life purpose, I felt like I could be doing something more in alignment with how I operate as a human being.
Yeah.
Like I am not one that functions great waking up early to an alarm. I'm not one who does well when I am constantly intaking other people's energy. And that is the job. Like that is the job when you work in a school system. There's not flexibility to behave differently in that environment, right? You're ruled by a bell schedule. You're ruled by a system that I really don't think I actually fit into, even though I had never questioned it. So that has led me to the work I'm doing today, which is leadership and energetic alignment. And I am incredibly focused on inner alignment and how that impacts the state of our external, not only our leadership, but our lives as a whole.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like you had that, like, I think there's probably a lot of people that are like, I just got on this path and I went this way and this is what I like built and this is what I created.
Yeah.
I do think that I'm seeing more, and maybe part of it's that like midlife sort of range of people questioning, like, why am I doing this? Like, is this really what I want to be doing? Like, where do I really want to be? And there's so many times that I have said, like, if I were to go back and do college over again, if I would go back, I don't know that I would have taken the route that I did, or if I would do it totally different the second time around. And I think that a lot of people feel that way. I think a lot of people feel like, I mean, we don't know who we are when we're 18 years old and we're going to college and we're trying to pick this career and pick this plan. And then for me, particularly, I've realized this is my last decade with kids like at home. Like, I mean, maybe my youngest will be 19.
Maybe you never know.
You'll never know. She'll be 19 by the time I turn 50. And so that feeling of, okay, this is my last decade with kids at home. And for so much of my life, I thought being a mom was like my entire life. And so now that those thoughts of, okay, is this how I want to be living? Like, what's going to happen after this? Like, it's like, am I really stepping into that calling of where I am? And I think personally, for me, it's been this wrestle of for so many people and so much of my life, I felt like this conditioning of like being a mom was everything. And like in the last, I don't know, 8, 9 years, it's been this morphing into realizing like I have a passion, I have a purpose, I have like a soul's longing, I have these desires, these ways of being. Like there's how I want to show up. Like I don't like being ruled by somebody else's schedule, like all of these things. Like, and it's really looking at like, what is it that I want to create and what is it that I want to live and how do I want to be and how do I want to show up in the world that is independent of anybody else in my life, but then also how that ripples and supports everybody else in my life. And it's been this fascinating journey. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if you feel like you've noticed the same thing with age or if it's been this, if there was, I know obviously the retreat was the thing for you, but like
Sure.
even then, what was it that made you go to the retreat, I guess, in a sense?
I think there's so many things that we can unpack here across the board, right?
Okay.
Because you said the word conditioned, and I think
Mm-hmm.
US society does a fantastic job of conditioning us to believe in this perception of the American dream, right? Like
Yeah.
you are supposed to graduate high school, you go to college, you get married, you buy the house, you have kids, you climb the career ladder, and you just don't think about any of it because it's
Mm-hmm.
been so ingrained in us from an early age that this is just what you are supposed to do. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think we go through life without questioning the layers that we're adding to our identity, right? Without actually thinking, maybe this is not how I'm wired. Maybe this
Mm-hmm.
is not in alignment with my true soul purpose. And we end up living essentially someone else's life, like a life that
Mm-hmm.
society has built for us without questioning where we, as our own unique energetic beings, fit into that greater picture.
Yeah.
So I think that's true. And then I also agree with you that we evolve, right? Like we spend the first, couple of decades of our lives just learning and gaining information and doing. And I think that the next couple of decades for a lot of us, especially as women, is about unlearning all of what no longer serves us and peeling back those layers and getting back to the essence of who we truly are as energetic beings in this world. So
Yeah.
I think for a couple of decades we've been adding labels and now we're like these labels don't serve me any longer. Like I don't want to be identified as just this one thing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how we introduce ourselves our entire lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's incredibly difficult to unlearn. And it's so uncomfortable because it's unlike anything we're talking about or anything that we've been really exposed to in mainstream US culture.
Yeah, totally. I think that's one of the, I feel like I've run up against that, like personally as a mom. I've
Mhm.
noticed like I have zero expectations for my kids to go to college. If they'd like to, I think it's great. They can go there. But for me, I feel like growing up, it was all like, go to college, go to college, go to college. Like, this is the next step. This is what you do. This is how you grow. And now, one, being an entrepreneur and realizing there's so many different ways to make money. And there's so many different things that you can do that don't even require a college education. Number one. Number two, you could go live as an au pair in Italy. You could go as a, research assistant in Australia or like whatever. Like there are so many different things that you could do other than just go straight to college. Like I had somebody I went to high school with, he got it. I don't even know his whole journey, but he got into traveling and photographing and all these things. And now he's like, he travels the world taking photos for like National Geographic and things like that. Same, like unconventional, outside of the box type of way of living that at the time, most of us probably would have seen as like, oh, that's not the way you should be going. That's not what you should be
There
doing.
would have been
But
so
yet,
much judgment.
yes, so much judgment. And so now for me, I'm in this place of like, I would rather encourage my daughter to go live in Italy for a year or to whatever. And so it's been this really unlearning, like even to having conversations with other parents around like future and education and things like that. And I'm like, I just don't like, I have no expectation. If, like I said, if they want to, I fully support that. But it's in this everyday language of, I'm not holding that feeling of that you have to go, that like, that's the very next logical step for you. Even then, partly wish that I hadn't gone straight to college. I wish that I had gone and done some adventuring and lived life, because then I probably would have saved a ton of money actually going to school for what I wanted to go to school for, or, something of that nature. But like I said, at 18, you really don't know. You're figuring out who you are. So can we help them figure out who they are in a different way, in a different how, I think that was for me, that was the number one biggest thing I got out of college, was discovering who I was, being in a city away from my family, having to become independent, being able to explore and do things, and creating this like new adventure, new community type of thing. So is that really worth $250,000 to do
Right.
that? Or can we
Yeah.
go do that in other ways? Discover who you are, discover what you want to be, discover how you want to show up in the world. And if that requires an education after that, then go for it. But if not, can we spend some more time as adults? One, we need to learn who we are and that soul's purpose and like what we really feel called to. But like, how do we stop doing that to the generations coming after us and like help them figure that out before they've gone down the same trajectory we have?
Yeah. Well, and as an educator, I think there are so many things that we could be employing in our education system to support
Mm-hmm.
parents and students in doing this. Like, do I believe that we need a foundational knowledge of some core competencies? Of course I do. But do I also believe that we're completely missing the mark on this self-discovery piece? Also true. I think we are
Yeah.
moving students through education and putting them in boxes when, as humans, none of us are meant to be boxed in. So,
Mm-hmm.
where are we helping them develop the skills that allow them to get quiet and really get to know themselves and just be decades ahead of where you and I are,
Yeah.
right? As far as that self-discovery process goes. And I just think there's so many things that we could be teaching. There's so many strategies that we could be supporting in our schools to help them do that. Like, where are the mindfulness techniques? Where is the
Mm-hmm.
emotional intelligence being developed? And is it being developed under, in covert ways? For sure.
Mm-hmm.
But why are we not having explicit conversations about this? Because that's what actually really matters. And then
Yeah.
when you decide what industry you want to go into and what skills you need, those can be learned along the way. But those inherent skills that make you a good human, a strong human who knows who you are, who knows how to communicate, who knows how to live their life with integrity and to treat others with humanity, where is that explicitly being taught, and why is that not a topic of conversation that we're all
Mm-hmm.
having as parents, as
Mm-hmm.
educators, and as kids? Where is the advocacy for that level of holistic, wellness and being?
Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree. I feel very fortunate. Like my kids' school has their like school counselor comes in and does like a social emotional sort of class with them every week. And it's fun to hear like what they do some weeks, and I'm like, oh, you're doing, they did tapping one time. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
love
it's
it.
so cool to hear you're
That's
like
amazing.
doing
Yeah.
tapping, or different things. And it's like, but that's like the fringy sorts of school systems. Like it's not what is being taught in every school. Like we go to a charter school, they get to create their own curriculum and things like that. It's not coming from the top down. But I think what you highlighted on there is like the more important piece of this, is that it is in the sense of like the integrity and the humanity and like teaching people to see and feel themselves. Like I think that's a big part of it, is like this sense of feeling themselves and then also understanding how those feelings ripple and impact the other. And I know you and I were talking about before, is the sense of like the humanity piece. Like we've lost touch, I think, as a society with our humanity and like who we are as people. And recently my family and I've been watching Love on the Spectrum. Have you watched it?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay,
Love
so
it.
my kids and I were watching it, and my youngest, she's 9, she was like, what is autism? What is it? Like she couldn't, I mean, obviously she could probably tell how they act different in the show and stuff like that, but she didn't know what autism was. And so I explained to her, well, autism is just like a different way of thinking. Like it's a different way of the brain processing information and how it interacts with the world and things like that. And so we had this conversation. I said, well, you know that you have kids in your class that have autism, right? And I mean, they go to a school, they're like well integrated. They don't have a special ed classroom. They're all, what is it called?
General education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Immersed in the general
Yeah.
education. There
Yeah.
was like a special word for it, but I'm not thinking of it. Anyway, I was like, you know, you have kids in your class that have autism. And she was like, no. And I was like, yes, like one of her best friends has autism. And she was like, wait, what? Really? Like she had no clue. And I was talking to a friend of ours that works at the school. And he was like, no way, like really? And we had this whole conversation around how for her, like, I absolutely love that we live in a community where in her class, she has these kids that are on the spectrum and not just like subtle little quirky sorts of spectrum. Like they need a full-time support person in their class with them the entire day, like kind of, so they have like kids in their class with autism. They have kids that are from Ethiopia. They have kids from Japan. They have Black kids. They have kids that are like legitimately the most eclectic, diverse sort of group of kids in this classroom. And for my kids, they don't see any one of them as being different. I mean, they do. Like they see everybody as being different, but they don't see the differences as weird. So it's like, oh, that's how she responds.
They're
My
honoring
friend,
each other's humanity.
yes. My
Yeah.
friend was like, yeah, he's like, it's amazing that for them, like in the class, he's like, when so-and-so has a meltdown in the middle of class, it's no big deal because they're just like, that's just how she's like she needs to process or she's got her thing or whatever. It's not. Whereas growing up for me, it would have been like, oh, like that
There would have been
person,
shame,
there would have
place.
been
Yeah.
shame and judgment and all these things. And like how I love that about my daughter and like seeing her in her sphere and in her world. It's like every person in the class is unique. Every person in that class is different, but there's no shame cast on any of that. And I see that like the humanity of that and the levelness of like acceptance of each individual person as what do you need? How do you need to be supported? How do you need to be like, how do we help you be the fullest version of you? And I know you and I were talking about that a little bit before of like, that is a big piece that's missing in our culture right now. And I think with one, leadership, and two, also the like social media and the anonymity of on social media is a sense of like people not feeling like they can fully express who they are and who they want to be because it's not being well respected. Anyway, I'll just stop there and let you jump in
Yeah. So
because
again,
I
I'm
shared
going
a
to say
lot.
there's lots of layers that we could dissect
Mm-hmm.
here. So I'm going to start with, I think that we have lost really knowing ourselves. And that's probably the start of where we became lost as a society. Because when I no longer know, first of all, when I feel shame for being who I am, because society has taught me that certain emotions are shameful or that the way I express certain emotion is shameful, now I'm becoming smaller. I'm making myself small to fit into a greater box, right?
Yeah.
So when leaders shouldn't cry, or, we shouldn't be allowed to express anger, or I have to keep my disappointment to myself. All of those things make me smaller, and they also eat away at my humanity, right? Because now I'm holding my authenticity back, and the world needs our authenticity. Like like physically, we need to be able to release anger. It is healthy to release anger. It's
Yeah.
not okay to keep it inside. It actually has been linked to very serious chronic illness. So we are being trained to actually suppress things that are having a negative physical impact on our bodies. So I think if we can, one, get back to it's okay to have human emotion. It's okay to be the full spectrum of a human being. And we do have to learn appropriate ways to express those emotions.
Yes.
But that's what we should be having a conversation about so that when I am upset, I can come to you and I now can have a healthy conversation with you and we can work through it in a productive way. And I can honor your humanity in that process and you can also honor mine. But when I've lost sight with who I am and I've just been suppressing and carrying all of that weight of my emotions for such a long time, when they finally come out, it's going to be explosive. It's going to be nasty. And then none of us are going to feel good about it.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it, right? I think we've lost touch with ourselves. And as a result, it's easy for us to no longer relate to others because if we don't understand our own unique human design,
Hmm.
how can I relate to someone else and have compassion and empathy for them? So I think getting back to really sitting in some stillness with ourselves and spending time with ourselves is
Hmm.
just as important as building relationships and capacity to hold space with other people. If we don't have that practice within ourselves, how can we possibly express empathy and compassion to another individual? If we feel
Yeah.
shame in our anger, then we don't have an option but to express shame in someone else's anger and to shame them, right? Like
Hmm.
energy attracts like energy. So I think we also live in this world where we're being taught that we have so little control of what's going on outside of us, when really we have a lot more control than we think. When we can get right within ourselves, that energy is going to magnetize and come back to us, but it can't
Yeah.
do it until we're willing to do that internal work. That's the shift I think that needs to happen.
Totally. I think that there is, I mean, even just for me recently, I've seen some stuff around like emotion is like you can't have emotion in business and things like that. And
Such bullshit.
I know. And I got super fired up about some stuff I saw that Mark Zuckerberg said around like femininity and this energy and things like that in corporate America and like how it's neutered corporate America and all these things. And I think it's these subtle little messages that we get around like feeling is bad and that only
Mhm.
like these emotions like I think it comes from this place of like feeling like emotion is just whimsical, like it's going to steer you and it's going to direct you and it's
Feelings
going
are
to
information. Feelings
yes.
are information. They are simply data points to help us understand, what's wrong or
Mhm.
what's thriving. Like there it's information that helps us make decisions about the lives that we're living.
Yeah.
There's nothing whimsical about having a feeling.
No, and I honestly, what I've found is that the more that I've gotten tapped into actually feeling the feelings, the less that they direct me. Like
Yes.
the less that they like cause me to just go in this impulsive direction. When you actually are like able to actually sit and feel and be with the emotion, you're like, oh, that's why I'm feeling this way. And that's why then it allows you to actually like have that relationship between the feeling and the head and make a decision that's actually going to move you forward. One, that feels more in alignment.
Mhm.
And two, that's not just this like irrational, impulsive sort of transition, right? Like I could see where the idea of like emotion causing some problems, but I think it's comes from the place of like people not really actually knowing how to feel their emotions and process those emotions and be with those emotions. They're just taking it as this like impulse, like I don't want to be there, I don't want to go there versus okay, there's a fear coming up here. Why is the fear this thing here, and what is this teaching me and what is this telling me? Like there's a whole different journey I think that happens when you
Yes.
listen to the actual emotion than if you just impulsively respond to an emotion. And I think that
Right.
that's maybe the bigger conversation in this.
Yeah, and I have said for years, we need to learn to honor the pause. Like when
Mhm.
I have an urge to react, I need to sit for a moment and I need to say, what is true for me right now?
Mhm.
Because I might have a reaction to something that someone says, and it might not have anything to do with what came out of that person's mouth. If I can pause and say, what is true for me right now? It could be, holy cow, like I am running on nothing but coffee and it's 2 p.m. I need a snack. Like
Yeah.
I need some water. I need to take a walk. Like sometimes what we need is so simplistic. And then I can respond to whatever the question or the comment was
Mhm.
or whatever the scenario requires. But if I don't stop and start getting in the habit of asking myself, what do I need? I am going to have the outburst, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
am going to become overreactive and escalated when I'm not checking in, because sometimes it's something very biological. It's not even
Yeah.
emotional. It could be biological, but being hangry is a
Mm-hmm.
real thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Totally.
I think we laugh off some of these things, but sometimes it's like, well, you've been sitting in front of technology for 4 straight hours. You probably need to get up and get some oxygen flowing to your brain and like have a conversation with a human.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not that complex, but to your point, we just start reacting instead
Mm-hmm.
of getting into a state of being responsive and responding
Mm-hmm.
to what it is that we need. And what we need is going to shift. What's true for me right now after I take a walk is not going to be the same truth. What's
Yeah.
true for me after I vent to my girlfriend and can like rethink a situation is different than what was true for me before that opportunity, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, totally. I think even, I mean, if we were to kind of blanketly like look at society, I think a lot of people are in that reactionary mode. And so, like some of the comments that I get on some of my Facebook ads or on my posts or things like that, I think are coming from that place of somebody else's reaction. And I know as an entrepreneur and business owner, so much of the messaging on like my side is like, they're responding with their stuff. Like it's not usually about me, it's about them type of deal. And when we think about it, it is true a lot of the times. And even I shared with you, like I had a conversation last night in my DMs, and at the end of it, was like, I will be honest, I felt very triggered by this. This was my response. Like I felt the trigger. I should have paused. I should not have responded in that triggered state. I should have waited and responded like I should have allowed myself to feel the trigger and feel
Yeah,
the feeling and
right.
then respond later rather than responding in the trigger in that responsive reactive sort of space. But I think that's a majority of how society is operating right now, is like we get the trigger, we feel something, and then we respond and we take action while we're in that responsive triggered state, instead of like what you said, okay, go for a walk, hash it out, feel the feels, pause, like do all these other things, and then allow that, like it's like that nervous system goes into fight or flight, and we feel this urge to actually do one of the responses. Like we either have to fight or flight, rather than, okay, how can I actually help my nervous system like calm itself back down and then respond out of this place of feeling safe. And this is actually what I'm feeling, and these are the voice that I need to say. This is how I need to speak up for myself. This is how I need to make change or shift or whatever. But we're not doing that. I think as a whole, majority, I'm not like saying every single person, but like a majority of society is in this very responsive, reactive fight or flight response all of the time.
Yeah. And I think something that can be super helpful when we are in those situations where we are feeling like someone else is triggering us is what percentage of the energy that I'm carrying is actually mine.
Mm,
Because when I stop and ask myself that question, a lot of times I'm like, oh my gosh, like I, in and of myself, am fine. Like
yeah.
I am fine, but I have been piling on everyone else's energetics throughout the day. And for example, the woman in your DM or whoever it
Mm-hmm.
was, right? Like you are probably taking on her negative energy and that was
Mm-hmm.
causing you to escalate. Whereas before, like you were probably fine.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when we can stop and ask ourselves, like, what percentage of what I'm carrying and reacting to right now is actually me reacting versus me
Mm,
reacting with someone else's energy, that's really
mm-hmm.
important. And maybe it is my energy. Maybe when I stop
Yeah.
and ask that question, I'm like, you know what? I have been through so much today that this really minor thing that happened with the cashier or with my flight or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is with the person in the parking lot, it probably wouldn't even be a thing if I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have all of this other energy I was carrying. And I
Yeah.
think that can help us have perspective and avoid overreacting because most of the time we're not overreacting to a big thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're overreacting to something that is so insignificant in the grand scheme
Mm-hmm.
of things. but it's like we just let it all pile up and we carry all that energy until we just burst. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we've got to learn a more embodied way of being. How do we
Yeah.
constantly make it a habit and a rhythm to just be getting in touch with ourselves and in alignment with ourselves so that all of the little triggers out there just become information that we're processing, not something that we are overreacting to.
Yeah. This is interesting because I've heard a lot of times too, people talk about like if you're triggered by something in somebody else or like a
A
quality or
mirror.
a characteristic. Yeah, it's like more of that mirror. So
Mhm.
and I do agree with you. I think sometimes we pick up other people's stuff that's not even ours in the first place. So how do you differentiate between that? Like that sense of like, this is somebody else's stuff that I am just like, whew, I'm feeling all of this versus, okay, this person's triggering me in this way. This is a mirror of something that I need to do some work
Yep.
on myself.
So I think when we do pause to like gather the information, I think that's
Mm-hmm.
when we get clarity, right?
Okay.
Because I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of times, and I think this has come true for me through meditation. Like I'm a very
Mm-hmm.
strong believer in meditation. And for anybody listening who's like, oh, meditation is not for me, I was
Mm-hmm.
also that person. I'm like, I don't have time. That seems a little
Same.
woo-woo. I don't know if that's like really something that would benefit me. But when I went to that holistic retreat, going back to the beginning of our dialogue, meditation was a part of our practice in the morning and in the evening. So there were two set times for stillness each day. And we did what was called primordial sound healing, but there are so many types of meditation. And I just make it a part of my practice. And I will do something very simple in the morning, just an energetic realignment for the day. It only
Mm-hmm.
takes a couple of minutes. This is not a 20-minute activity every day. And I will do it at night as I'm going to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And what you learn in the stillness about yourself is so informative. You can gather so much information about who you are as a human when you're quiet enough to listen to your body.
Yeah.
Listen to the thoughts that are actually repeating in your brain. And a lot of times I've learned, holy cow, like I have some really outdated thought patterns that I'm
Mm-hmm.
still like allowing to live like rent free up here, and it's impacting the quality of my relationships. It's impacting how I'm showing up for myself and for others.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can make an intentional effort to change, right?
Yeah.
So, like when I'm
Yeah.
constantly triggered by another individual and I sit in that stillness, I will start to see how I am showing up as that other individual for other people in my life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Totally.
those people are attracted to us for a reason. Like energetics don't lie. I think if you, and I, going back to your question, like when someone is showing up for you repeatedly and triggering you in the same way, or certain things are triggering you in the same way, that's usually a sign that like the
Mm-hmm.
universe is giving you a mirror, right? Like a
Yeah.
one off,
Yeah.
we can say maybe I'm just carrying some like other energy. But if it keeps repeating and it's a pattern, that's when we can be like, okay, I need to look in the mirror and really do some excavating because, there's an opportunity for me to learn
Mm-hmm.
something about myself from this individual.
Yeah. And I will just throw in there too, like I'm not somebody who loved meditation. And still, even to this day, it's something where I'm like, I have to be intentional about it. But it's amazing how much shift happens when you just allow
It is.
yourself to sit and pause. And like right now, I was even thinking about it recently. Like I've been in the habit of like every morning I wake up, I like read one chapter of whatever book I'm reading, and then I will do some journaling.
Mhm.
But even that is not the same as the mornings where I go out and I just like actually just sit there. It is so different. The energy that I feel throughout the rest of the day, the state of being, my state of groundedness, my state of inner peace, that sense of like shedding things that don't need to be there anymore, to letting go, to being able to get clarity on new moves or to any of that. And it's like this last year or two, I mean, it's been something I've been in progress of growing, but like definitely in the last year or two have been in the space of like trying to tune out all the other noises and all the other voices and listening to myself more. But it's easy when you're not doing these meditations, when you're not allowing yourself just to be still and sit with yourself. When you do even, it's like focused on journaling or focused on reading or focused on any of these other like stillnessy type of practices, right?
Yeah.
they're not the same as
No.
actually just like sitting and being open to receiving like the insight, the thought, the feeling, whatever it is. And I've noticed there is a definite difference and a correlation in the way I show up throughout the rest of that day and how confident I feel, how clear I feel, all of those types of things when that is started with my day.
Yeah. And I think, we make it into this thing that we have to be good at. Like people are like, oh,
Uh-huh.
I have too many thoughts, right? Like I'm constantly being interrupted by the bazillion things going on inside my brain. That's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the point is to recognize, oh, I'm having this repeated thought or, oh, like, okay, I'm living in my brain rather than in my body
Uh-huh.
again, right? Like it's
Uh-huh.
okay to say, okay, I recognize this and I'm going to let it pass by like a cloud in the sky, right? Like I recognize
Uh-huh.
this thought, I'm aware that I have it, but in a non-judgmental way, I'm releasing it
Uh-huh.
and now I'm back to stillness, right? Like it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a beautiful, perfect practice. It can be messy and you are still
Yeah.
going to reap the benefit of it. You're doing breath work most likely when you're meditating, you're regulating your nervous system. Like there's so many benefits that come.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, just after 1 week of that, I'm like, I can never go back to that not being a part of my daily practice. And like you,
Uh-huh.
if I miss a day, like even when I'm traveling now, I'm like, I will meditate on the plane. I will like I will wake up 15 minutes early just to have that extra time. Because if I don't like if I don't start living in my body from the second I get out of bed,
Yeah.
I'm not serving humanity in the way that I am supposed to.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. Oh, my kids, like, well, one, it was a luteal phase. I had so much happening, like so much. Like there was 1 week ago or whatever that was like, I just lost it in so many different capacity. Like I was at that edge, like that
Yeah.
anything and everything was triggering me and I was feeling overwhelmed and awful and whatever. And I told the kids, I was like, there was one morning where I was like up trying to do my meditation, trying to do my stuff. And my two little ones came out and they started fighting and I lost it. I was like, I am literally trying so hard to like hold it together and to like do these small little things to keep myself like at least centered and grounded. You guys coming out and screaming and yelling and fighting in the middle of it is not helping me. And I was like, can I please just have like the morning? Like if you wake up and you come out and you see me doing my meditation, and just leave me alone for a little bit. It's not long. Just leave me alone. And then when I'm done, like, and don't fight, don't turn on the TV, like, don't do all these things. Like, just let me have this little bit of space. And so then now not the joke, but like every morning they're like, Mom, can you make sure that you get your meditation in today? Like, can you make sure, like there was a field trip that I was going on with one of my daughters and she's like, Mom, can you make sure to get up early tomorrow so you can do your meditation before you come on the field trip so that you're like calm and feel really good with my friends? So it's like this funny little joke now. They've realized
Yeah.
like, okay, it makes a huge difference for mom. Like she's not as angry,
Great.
she's not as frustrated, she's not as whatever when she does this. So how do we support her in being able to do that?
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and I think that comes back to why can't we be more comfortable asking for what we need?
Uh-huh.
Right. And again, I think there's a lot to unpack with what you said, right? Like you needed to ask for what you needed, but you also have to give yourself grace for those times when
Uh-huh.
you're just not going to have it all together. And there
Yeah.
are so many things. Like I said this too, I'm seeing a new holistic doctor, a naturopath, and I went to her about a month ago and I'm like, I am falling apart. Like I can't hold my emotions together. I can't eat. Like I am sluggish, like I am lethargic, I am flat. And she's like, let's do some blood work. Like, let's like figure out what's going on. And we found out that my body wasn't processing vitamin B. I had no vitamin B in
Mm.
my body, which regulates your brain health, hormone health, like your emotions. And she's like, yeah, you actually can't hold it together right now. So the
Yeah.
fact that you could even come to me and say, I can't hold it together, she's like, there's a very logical, biological explanation. We just need your body to be able to absorb some vitamins. Like, that's
Uh-huh.
literally it. So I think there's so many things that we are so judgmental, especially as women. Like, we're so judgy of ourselves and like not holding
Uh-huh.
it together and not having it all figured out and like being emotional sometimes. But that's like part of the beauty of our essence also is like we are these incredibly complex emotional beings And I think I've started to embrace that about myself. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to be a teary individual because I feel things really deeply. Like, I can look at a tree and it might bring me to tears because I think it's beautiful. I could have a
Mhm.
conversation with someone who's really upset. And I'm like, gosh, come to me in your messiness. Like, I love you in your messiness. Like, sit
Mhm.
on my porch and fall apart and like, let's look at the sky together. I'm not judging you. I am sitting with you in solidarity because I know you just need to release whatever it is that you're carrying. Like, if you
Yeah.
had a bad day, I think when you were having that bad week, I even had reached out to you in your DMs and was just like, hey, like, I see you or whatever. Like, it's
Mhm.
okay. We don't judge other people for
Yeah.
having emotion or like falling apart. So why do we do that to ourselves? Like,
Mhm.
let's treat, we live in a world of benevolence and grace, but we need to give that same benevolence and grace to ourselves. So I
Yeah.
think there's just so much here for us as women that we try to suck it up. We try to hold it all together.
Mhm.
We don't ask for what we really need. We don't get quiet enough to know what we need.
Yep.
We could just do a better job of like honoring our own humanity and our own human experience because that's why we're sent here, right? Like we are
Mhm.
energetic souls sent to embody the human experience. So live it. Like we should
Yeah.
just be allowed to live it in all of the range of emotions, and that should be okay. We should support each other in
Yeah.
normalizing that.
Yeah, for sure. I think there is so much in that of just like recognizing that duality of the full
Yes.
spectrum of everything. And that's the more that we embrace that humanity versus no, don't feel this way. This is feeling this way is bad. This, you're shameful for being in this space or whatever. Like there's this duality of like being able to hold the messiness and the amazingness and the hard stuff and the good stuff and all of it. And like, being okay. I think I actually posted one of the trends recently was that like propaganda that I'm not willing to stand for or believe in or whatever it was. And one of the things I put on there was that limiting beliefs in our mindset is what's holding us back from hitting our goals. And somebody responded and asked about it. And I said, I think it's this essence of like, for me, so much, there was this essence of like, I have to fix my limiting beliefs. I have to fix my mindset. I have to, like, there's something wrong with me that I'm broken instead of this willingness of just accepting all parts of it and accepting that there are going to be beliefs that are there to help try to keep me safe and that are ones that are maybe not in alignment with my goals, but that's okay. They can come along for the ride too. And just being able to witness them and to be with them and to hold space for there is fear and there is shame and there is judgment and there's also all these other things. And how do we sit there and hold them? And I think it goes back to that same idea that you talked about earlier is like the reactiveness versus the like sitting there and being with them. And I think that's the differentiator in all of this is like, where are we letting them steer the bus and guide and like be the driver versus where are we just witnessing them and allowing them to be here and allowing to sit with it and allowing it to be. And I think that is the journey that I've been on. And I think it's made such a huge difference. And I see it as like, wow, if all of humanity could just get better at just sitting with themselves and like feeling like you even alluded to at the beginning of like the disease that happens when we hold these things in. There was a book, I think it was actually radically honest, radical honesty. I think it was that book actually that talked about like he believes every major disease is rooted to an like basically a suppressed emotion
Yeah.
and
There's another
how
book called The Body Keeps the Score.
yeah
And it's all,
yes.
yeah. Yep.
I
So,
never
and I think
finished that one, but yes.
there's so much evidence,
Mhm.
and I'm to the point now when I'm like, man, like this back pain that just is so persistent, like what is
Yeah.
this about? Like what am I carrying that I should
Yeah.
not be carrying, right?
Yeah.
And I think when we're so afraid of getting still because it's
Mhm.
uncomfortable at first. So
Mhm.
many things come up that we have not recognized about ourselves. So we are learning so much and sitting with so many uncomfortable emotions, probably for the first time when we first start these practices of really being embodied, that I think that's why we shy away from it, right? Like we
Yeah.
become doers rather than beers of our energy. And it is hard, but I think,
Mhm.
gosh, like it's so freaking rewarding because now I can work through a problem so much more quickly. Like now when I start to get upset, I'm like, okay, nope, this is a thought pattern. I have the ability to break this. Like, I'm just going to choose differently right now. I'm not going to
Mhm.
respond in the same way because I'm telling myself a narrative that's only true in my head. Like, whatever we tell ourselves up here is what becomes true in our reality. I don't think
Yeah.
that we realize how much control we have over that. But
Yeah.
unless we take time to get still and recognize those patterns, we can't break them. They're
Yeah.
so deeply embedded in our brains.
Totally. So much, so true. So true. And just giving ourselves the grace too of letting those patterns take
Yes.
time to reshift and things like that. Like
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't, I mean, I work in the NICU and I tell parents all the time, I'm like, what you're doing right now and how you're touching your baby is setting up the neural pathways for the rest of their life. And so it is like one of those things that we have to be really aware of. Like these pathways take time to develop and to create. And we're basically, it's like, cutting through cornfields and then like reblazing a new trail and creating a new path and like giving ourselves to the time and the space to let those new paths and let those new things emerge and like take that time. So I think we get down on ourselves when it doesn't flip a switch overnight, or we get reactive and we've been trying so hard to be patient, or we this I remember telling a coach mentor I was working with, I'm like, I feel like I've moved through this limiting belief and story like so many freaking times. Like, why does it keep showing up? Right. And that idea of it, these are patterns. These are things that have been here. They've been conditioned to us, not probably just our lifetimes, but generations of lifetimes. And how it's not even maybe just ours that we're conditioned into. It's like generations and generations of us. And like we are just the ones now becoming aware of it and healing and doing the work and doing the journey and all of that type of stuff. So giving ourselves that space for that. So this has been so amazing. And I'm sure we
Yeah,
could
it's been
keep
fun.
chatting. But before we wrap up, will you share where people can find you, how they can get in touch with you, what it is they can do with you? And then if there's anything that you feel like we kind of left out that you want to leave people with.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at dearjessapp.com. So I did create an app. So if you are a person who is like, I don't really know how to tap into meditating, or what is
Mhm.
EFT, what is tapping, how can I create these strategic aligned success systems for my life and myself as a leader? And I say leader, and I don't mean like you have a leadership title. Like you can be a leader of your home. You are the leader of your own body, right? Like I'm talking about self government as well. And so I do have an app. So you can find me at dearjessapp.com. I'm on Instagram at Dear Jess Lead with Love. Everything is an underscore. And LinkedIn, I'm just under Jessica Steele. So that's where I hang out the most. You can also reach me via email. So Jess at dearjessapp.com. I do coaching in a lot of different ways. So I do one-on-one coaching. I will do small group coaching. In the education space, I will provide professional development. So there are so many ways that we can
Mhm.
connect and really just work with whatever, your objectives are or the objectives of your audience. I'm very passionate about bringing this work to the education space. So if you are an
Mhm.
educator,
Mhm.
I think these practices can be not only beneficial for your teams, but like do these practices with your kids. Like I'm just so excited to like change the way that we are teaching our youth to show up in the world.
Totally. Yeah, I agree because they are the future. They are
Yeah,
the next
all
generation.
about them.
And they are changing things and creating so much more speed in,
Yes.
I think, just because of technology and access and things like that. Like the speed of transformation that's happening right now is so freaking fast that they're picking up on things and changing, and it's like lightning speed what they are able to do. Like that for generations has been slow and slow growth, slow growth, slow growth. They are like
Yeah, I
really
would love to
fast.
just give them all of the tools to empower them
Mhm.
to just embody who they are as
Yeah.
their unique energetic beings, because I think we're going to see amazing things from them.
Yeah. So cool. Thank you so much, Jess, for
Yes,
hopping
thank
on. This was
you.
great.